the meeting here at Raysville was the child of another meeting. So if you want to understand its genealogy, it goes something like this. Raysville Meeting of Friends was established in the year 1841 by Spiceland Monthly Meeting, just up the road. Spiceland Monthly Meeting was established in 1833 by Duck Creek Monthly Meeting. Duck Creek Monthly Meeting was established in 1826 by Milford Monthly Meeting. Milford Monthly Meeting was established in 1823 by Westbrook Monthly Meeting. Westbrook Monthly Meeting was established in 1817 by Whitewater Monthly Meeting. So far we're all in Indiana. Whitewater Monthly Meeting was established in the year 1809 by West Branch Monthly Meeting, which is in Miami County, Ohio. It in turn was established in the year 1807 by Miami Monthly Meeting in Waynesville, Ohio. Miami Monthly Meeting was established in the year 1803 by Westland Monthly Meeting, which is in Washington County, Pennsylvania, south of Pittsburgh. It, in turn, was established in the year 1785 by Hopewell Monthly Meeting, outside of Winchester, Virginia. And Hopewell was established in 1735 by Nottingham Monthly Meeting in Chester County, Pennsylvania. From this point onward, we're always going to be in Pennsylvania. Nottingham was established in the year 1730 by New Garden Monthly Meeting. New Garden was established in the year 1718 by Kennett Monthly Meeting. Kennett was established in the year 1686 by Chester Monthly Meeting. And Chester Monthly Meeting was established in the year 1682 by friends coming to Pennsylvania from England with William Penn. So by my calculations, that makes Raysville Friends the great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren of William Penn, friends settling in the Delaware Valley in the 1680s. So that's one way we could look at beginning our story. I think, though, the real roots of this church lie in the South, in North Carolina. And the discontent, the uneasiness that North Carolina Friends were beginning to feel around the year 1800. Now, most people, when they think about early American Quakerism, think of Philadelphia and Pennsylvania and William Penn. But by the beginning of the 19th century, North Carolina ranks second only to Pennsylvania as a center of Quaker population. There were old settlements of Friends on Albemarle Sound in the northeastern part of the state. In the central part of the state, what we call now the Piedmont, beginning around 1740, large numbers of Friends had begun to move down from the north, from Virginia and Pennsylvania and Maryland and New Jersey, settling in the area around what's now Greensboro and Winston-Salem. They had become a considerable population. They had established a number of meetings. They had acquired some influence in the affairs of the state, but they were also uneasy. Part of this was practical. They were farming people, and by 1800 they were living on lands that had been worked for 50 or 60 years. By the standards of the time, those were old fields that they were farming. The fertility was beginning to decline. At the same time, because it was the rule that not only Friends, but North Carolinians generally in those days had families of 8 or 10 or 12 children. The largest family I found record of here at Raysville was 16 children. The ambition of Friends to be able to settle all of their children around them on their own farms was becoming increasingly difficult and increasingly expensive. So it was natural that North Carolina Friends, like their non-Quaker neighbors, were looking west toward cheaper, more productive, more fertile land. But North Carolina Friends had another reason for being uneasy. By the 1780s, they had reached the conclusion that human slavery was contrary to the will of God. And some Friends before that time had been slave owners. In fact, at one time, George Fox himself had been given the gift of a human being to hold as his slave. But because of the work of Quaker leaders like John Woolman and the workings of Quaker conscience, by 1784, all of the yearly meetings in the world had ruled that Friends could not be slave owners. And those that were had to free their slaves. They couldn't just sell them off and be rid of slaves in those ways. Instead, since all people were entitled to freedom, Friends who owned slaves were to manumit them, to set them free unconditionally. And if they did not do so, then they would lose their membership. They would be disowned. And so a number of North Carolina Friends had voluntarily given up a significant part of their wealth to remain true to their conscience and to the conclusions that their yearly meetings had reached. This did not make North Carolina Friends popular with many of their neighbors, who, if anything, were becoming more entrenched in slaveholding. And it tells you something that in the 1790s, grand juries in no less than 16 counties in North Carolina had sent petitions to the state legislature, asking it to do something about the subversive activities of the people called Quakers, who were imbuing slaves with dangerous ideas of liberty and freedom. So North Carolina Friends found themselves increasingly unpopular, regarded with suspicion by their neighbors. So it was natural that they would look north and west, over the Ohio River, toward the lands of the Northwest Territory, which under the Northwest Ordinance of 1787 would be forever free of slavery and involuntary servitude. So Friends began to settle in Ohio in the 1790s. In 1806, the first moved into the Indiana Territory, settling around Richmond. Thus, the first monthly meeting in Indiana is established in the year 1809. After the War of 1812, in 1818, the federal government negotiated the Treaty of St. Mary's with a number of Native American nations. Under the terms of the Treaty of St. Mary's, what's basically the central part of the state of Indiana was ceded to the federal government and open for settlement. And so it was that the first settlers and the first Friends began to arrive here in Henry County in 1819. The first Quaker we can definitely identify coming into what's now Wayne County was a Friend who settled a little north of here, north of Greensboro. His name was Eli Stafford, a native of Randolph County, North Carolina, who still has a number of descendants living here in this area. Some of you may know Dwayne Elliott, who farms north of here. He's a great-great-great-grandson. So is Richard Ratcliffe, the long-time clerk of Spiceland Monthly Meeting. Now, as Friends began to come into Henry County, they generally settled in communities at Hopewell or Duck Creek or Spiceland or Flat Rock in the northeastern part of the county. Friends lived in community because they wanted to be able to look over each other for good. Also, to live to a certain extent in isolation, trying to keep free from the contaminations that the larger world offered and the temptations that might be found in such institutions as saloons or law courts or Methodist churches or other threats to plain Quaker living. Friends began to settle here on Blue River in the late 1820s. By the 1830s, they formed a meeting a little north of here at Elm Grove. And by 1840, they were settling around the little town of Raysville. So in 1841, Raysville meeting is formed. It becomes originally an indulge meeting, which meant that it could meet for worship but no other business purposes. It was in 1847 that it became a preparative, or 1846 that it became a preparative meeting, which meant that it could prepare business matters to be considered by Spiceville Monthly Meeting. Then in 1857, it had grown enough in numbers that it becomes a monthly meeting in its own right. Now, when we look at the carefully kept records of Spiceland and Raysville monthly meetings, we find that almost all of the original members came from North Carolina. Some of them directly, like Caleb and Mary White or William Pickett. As near as I can tell, William Pickett was the oldest friend to settle here. He was born in North Carolina in 1766. Others came from southern Indiana. There was a significant influx of friends from Blue River Monthly Meeting in Washington County, including two brothers of Caleb White, Toms, not Thomas, but Toms, T-O-M-S for his mother's maiden name, White, and their younger brother John T. White. Others came from Ohio or to the east in Wayne County. Among these was the first friend, as far as I can determine, to be buried in the burying ground of friends here at Raysville, Jordan Albertson. Now, after the Civil War, the history of Raysville Friends became rather complicated. Raysville Monthly Meeting would be the parent of new meetings at Grant City, at Knightstown, at Shirley and Wilkinson. In 1870, Spiceville Monthly Meeting transferred the care of the meeting at Elm Grove to the care of Raysville Monthly Meeting, but it didn't last much longer. It was laid down in 1876. By 1895, the congregation at Knightstown had become larger than that here in Raysville. So even though it was still Raysville Monthly Meeting, all of the sessions were held at Knightstown. This is where Quaker history gets a little complicated. In 1919, the Knightstown Monthly Meeting, which was originally Raysville, set off Raysville Friends as their own monthly meeting. So in Quaker terms, Raysville Monthly Meeting, as it exists today, was set off from Knightstown Monthly Meeting, which was set off from Raysville Monthly Meeting. This is one of the more confusing genealogies that I've ever found. The main reason for that was that until the early 20th century, it was common for monthly meetings to consist of more than one congregation. So, for example, if you looked at Raysville Monthly Meeting in 1880, it would have consisted of the preparative meetings of Raysville, Knightstown, and Grant City. With the adoption of the pastoral system after 1890, however, so much business involved pastors for individual congregations that there was a general movement toward each congregation becoming its own monthly meeting. But that was something that wasn't completed until really the 1930s or the 1940s. And of course, to make things even a little more complicated, after a tornado destroyed the Grant City Meeting House in 1974, in 1975, Grant City Friends merged with Raysville Friends to form Raysville Grant City Monthly Meeting. So, a complicated history. Probably more important than the details of institutional genealogy, however, is the impact that Friends had on the world around them. And certainly you see that impact of Friends on Henry County, the neighborhood of Raysville. It was a given that as Friends moved west, first they set up meetings for worship, then they established a school for their children, often in the meeting house. There was a school here at Raysville in the 1840s. When Friends Boarding School, what's now Earlham, opened in 1847, 3 of the 45 original students were from Raysville. The brothers Francis and Mordecai Morris White, and I'll say more about them in a moment, and Charles S. Hubbard, who came back to Raysville to live the rest of his life here, and to marry a daughter of Tom's White. Friends were also noted for their commitments to high standards of morality. And you could have seen that in a number of ways. From the 1840s well into the 20th century, Raysville Friends waged unremitting spiritual and legal war on Demon Rome. And Knightstown and Raysville were notorious for some rather disreputable taverns and saloons, almost from the beginning. Indeed, the most notorious saloon keeper in Henry County in the 1850s and 1860s was a Raysville woman named Katie Staff, who interestingly enough sent her daughter to Earlham as a student. But in 1902, apparently Raysville Friends had so annoyed the local saloon crowd that one of them actually dynamited or tried to dynamite the meeting house as a protest against the temperance activities that were going on here. I find it also interesting that Raysville friend Charles S. Hubbard was one of the founders of the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals in the state of Indiana, and served for many years as its president. It's also unsurprising to find that Raysville Friends were involved in the Underground Railroad. They continued their anti-slavery testimony after they left the South. They joined the Henry County Anti-Slavery Society and the Henry County Female Anti-Slavery Society. Probably the most interesting and in many ways moving anti-slavery witness I found on the part of Raysville Friends involves the brothers I mentioned a little earlier, Francis and Mordecai Morris White.